Teresa, Yanaros. I'm going to make y'all an offer you can't refuse tonight. It's Divine Frequency on the Airwaves radio. We are talking tonight about miracles, the supernatural, and we're going to philosophize about what of it is potentially all baloney. I hope that everyone is enjoying a wonderful holiday season with their families. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever it is you guys are celebrating this season. I hope that it has been magical and filled with glitter and unicorns, obviously. You guys are tuning into On the Airwaves radio tonight. The times have changed and the tides have shifted. Let's ride the airwaves. This show is packed with high energy mediatainment live. We are diving deep into the realms of the world. We are exploring the farthest reaches of the unknown. We are leaving no ocean unexplored. Today is Thursday, December 27th, 2018. We are closing out 2018. It feels good. We're going to start off with some news tonight. Global News reported that on Wednesday, December 26, 2018, that a miracle boy survived 45 minutes buried under an avalanche in the French Alps. This was a 12-year-old boy. He was dragged under an avalanche while skiing in the French Alps. He was on a black diamond run with his dad. I want to know what kind of training he had, because a black diamond run for a 12-year-old, this must have been a really good skier. He was under the snow for 40 minutes, and he should have only survived about 15 minutes, according to some of the people that I was listening to today. And so he was dragged over 100 yards. That's 30 stories. If you can contextualize that for a second. He was found by a search dog, which I think is super cool. Maybe this is going to be a movie in the making. So was this just a coincidence, or was this a true holiday season miracle? So we're going to shift now. Let's dive right in. Hashtag Mermaid Life. What is a miracle? So a miracle is defined as a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. It's also known as a highly improbable or extraordinary event, development, or accomplishment that brings very welcome consequences. So it's that magical time of the year where we reflect on the amazing parts of our experience, and we appreciate and feel gratitude for all that we have in our lives. And we're looking back on 2018 and we're closing out the year. And I'm sure we can all look back on our lives in this moment and contemplate about the miracles that we've witnessed in our lives. And I can tell you guys an interesting story. I was actually in Virginia in 1991 during the time of what's known as the Seton miracles, which is really cool. I was raised Catholic, and my church was St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church in Fairfax County. You can look this up. This is really cool. And our priest was named Father James Bruce, and he was giving a sermon one evening when the statues of Mary allegedly began to cry. And there were hundreds of people that witnessed this event. But it didn't just happen once or twice or three times. It happened a bunch of times. And it seemed to follow him around. He would go to other parishes and give sermons, and people would witness these statues that appeared to be crying. There were some other miracles that people described, color changing rosaries, which was pretty cool. I didn't witness this myself. It would have been really cool to see. He also allegedly experienced stigmata, which are the wounds of Jesus Christ. You can find the pictures actually online. I'll be happy to share the sources with you guys. I'll post it after the fact so you guys can see. He had wounds on his wrists where those were allegedly the wounds of Jesus Christ. Very interesting. Well, and the other priest at our church, he was Father Daniel Hamilton. When he saw the stigmata wounds on Father Bruce's wrists, he said, "Oh, stigmata." And Father Bruce was like, "What?" And it's just really interesting. And one story from my sister, she was actually in a class, I think she was in 4th grade at the time, and her friend's mother was dying of cancer. She had stage 4 cancer, and she went to go see Father James Bruce, and there was a spontaneous miraculous healing there, and she went into remission. And he performed multiple healings on people in the community. So this was a big deal for me growing up. This happened between the years of 1991 and 1993. It was in Time magazine. It was a worldwide event that people discussed and they're still talking about to this day. And that's just one miracle that I've seen. I wonder about the miracles that you guys have seen in your life. When have you come in contact with something that was unexplained and incredible and wonderful and miraculous to witness? It's really interesting. There's a certain magical quality to miracles, right? So I do believe that there truly are moments where we experience the beyond, what lies beyond the physical. And then there are other moments where it's not so unexplainable, but really just based on a lack of full understanding of what's really going on. So for instance, I wanted to give you guys a really funny story of this. So every year, my family, we go out to East Texas for the holidays, and there's a little town that we go and we stay in. And this little town has this legend of Bigfoot, where they see Bigfoot allegedly. And I was there hanging out with my family, and I was walking down the street, and I came across one of the locals, and I started to talk to him, and I asked him, I said, look, you got to tell me about this Bigfoot myth. Like, what's going on with Bigfoot? And first he looked at me like I was crazy, and he didn't want to tell me. I could tell because I think he thought I was just going to make fun of him. But then I pulled out a business card and I was like, look, this is what I do. So you're going to have to tell me about the Bigfoot. I promise I'm not here to make fun of you. And so he said, all right, I'm going to tell you about the Bigfoot, because he lived in this small town his whole life. So there was a legend that there was a Bigfoot in this small town, and there was a group of people that would come from across the world every year, and they would meet in this small town, and they would have somewhat of a Bigfoot convention, and they would trek around. This is swampland with cypress trees, and so they would hop on these pontoon boats, and they would go around in these boats, and they would try to look for Bigfoot on these islands. And so this guy that I was talking to, he got together with his friends. This is back when they were teenagers. And one of the guys dressed up in what looked like a gorilla suit. They bought an outfit that looked like Bigfoot. And they took a boat out and they snuck around where these people were there for their yearly trek out to try to see Bigfoot. And they parked their little tiny boat behind an island. They hid the boat. They got out of the boat, they went onto the island, and then as these pontoon boats with the people with their cameras out pass by this island, their buddy gets out and walks across the island in his what appears to be a Bigfoot costume. So this happens, everyone freaks out, they're all screaming and taking pictures of this teenager wearing a gorilla suit. So this happened probably over a decade ago. And then what happened was that this legend blew up. So now where you had a small group of people showing up every year to see if they could find Bigfoot, now you had even more people. It tripled, where people have been coming every year to see Bigfoot. And he was laughing. He thought this was so funny. I mean, I thought it was pretty funny too. But then I asked him, I said, so is it all baloney? Is it all baloney then? And he said, no. And he got really serious. He was laughing, just carrying on, thinking this was so funny. And then he got really extremely serious. And he said, no, Teresa, actually, no, it's not. It's real. And I was like, okay, well, tell me about the real Bigfoot then. And he said, well, I know these lands like the back of my hand. I was born and raised here, and I know these forests. I camp in these forests, and I've heard things that are definitely not animals. It sounds like the loudest sound, and it's stomping, and it sounds like a man, but it's just so loud, it's deafening. He says that he's seen tracks and things like that. I said, have you actually ever seen one? He said, no, but he's heard and he's seen the tracks. So I thought that was kind of interesting to consider this whole concept of what's actually supernatural or beyond the physical and what is, well, baloney. So you have what's baloney. This would be something that's not real. This would be the teenager wearing the Bigfoot suit. And then you have the what's actually really beyond the physical. You could call it supernatural. There are lots of different words to describe this. We'll just say beyond the physical. But then I would say that we would probably want to break this beyond the physical into two categories. You have the purely supernatural, beyond the physical, that's amazing and miraculous. And then you have the other side of it where it's beyond the physical and it could be dangerous, evil, right? And we've talked about this before. We talked about the difference between darkness and evil. You can go back through the past, we've talked about that, but we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about, just because this is something that I really wanted to talk about, just because it's real and we have evidence that it's supernatural or paranormal, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should flock to it. So I wanted to talk for a second about ET contact experiences, or seeing UFOs, or interacting with what appear to be ETs, or being abducted, this whole concept of ET contact. And I know that in this field of ufology, we talk about the concept of extraterrestrials, UFOs, or governmental experiments, right? So when you have an experience and you're going into the realm of the unknown or the supernatural or the paranormal, and you experience ETs or UFOs, you have to ask yourself, what is this? What is this experience? Is it really extraterrestrial? What are the UFOs? Is it a government craft, right? And so we have to consider this concept of experimentation. We learned about mind control. We've learned about MK Ultra. We've learned about psionic weaponry, where you can be projected into your mind, where you can think certain words or see certain things. I've spoken with a ton of people who claim to be contactees, and I'm sure you guys have too. And we've all had our own experiences of seeing what appear to be UFOs. And it's like, well, what are those, right? So there's a factor here where you have potential contact with ETs, and then you have, well, maybe they're just human, right? Maybe it's just the government and they're going, yeah, I hope that they just think we're ETs. We can continue flying around up here, right? But then you have this concept of abductees. And you have this concept of contactees that describe marks on the body, bruises on their body. They describe being taken in these crafts and forced to do things or whatever. These things that are not benevolent, it's malevolent, right? So maybe that can be explained by humanity, but maybe it's extraterrestrial. But what I'd take this down to on a divine frequency level, if you will, is we need to talk about free will. Are you being imposed upon? That's not good. It's called trespassing. We've discussed in past broadcasts, good versus evil, like I said, good being using your gift of free will to not infringe upon other people's free will. And then bad or evil would be infringing upon other people's free will without informed consent, right? Doing harm. So another concept, so I wanted to leave that kind of on the shelf because I think this is really important to discuss, right? We have the concept of something that's not real, something that's baloney, something that's faked. And then you have things that are real, but we have to be careful about, what's really going on, and asking the questions and trying to really understand if it's good or bad, and checking back to this concept of free will and how everyone's feeling. You know what I'm saying? But another thing that I wanted to discuss, which is an additional concept here, would be past life regression therapy, which I think is really interesting to talk about. You guys know, if you follow Divine Frequency, we talk about this a lot. But I think about hypnosis, going into hypnosis, and then you're accessing past lives. And I don't know about some of you guys, if you've ever experienced this, if you've gone into hypnosis, if you've done a past life regression therapy, or if you've read books about it. I've read a lot of books about it. It makes me wonder though, are you actually accessing past lives? Right? Okay. So then this is bringing up the whole concept of baloney, right? Or is it really supernatural? And if it is supernatural, is it a good experience or is it a bad experience, right? Do you need to be careful? So are you accessing the collective consciousness when you're in hypnosis going into a past life? That's a question I always ask, where it's like, okay, maybe they're accessing other people's past lives. Maybe they're actually accessing their own past life. So there's that. Or are we suggestible while in a trance state because our brain chemistry is in a frequency bandwidth that allows us to create images and patterns of thought, kind of like a dream sequence. So then we think it's true, but it's actually not. There are so many different ways that you can look at this kind of material, and what I would say to that is that we really need to stay vigilant and continue seeking the truth. We have to stay grounded. We have to stay connected, and we need to appreciate that beautiful divine connection to the one and only divine creator. I talk a lot about going out into sky watches, right? And getting to experience looking up into the sky with groups of people. You see lights in the sky, and it's like, what are these lights? What are you looking at? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing with groups of people? Everybody's out there potentially, and I've seen some circumstances where everybody's meditating, you're going into a meditative state. What is it that you're interfacing with? Are these ETs? If they are they good ETs? Are they nefarious? Are they benevolent? What is that connection for? Can you actually mentally connect? We've talked about that. Can you actually interface mentally with these beings? Or are they not ETs at all? Is it just governmental craft? So these are just some errant thoughts that I had. What do you guys think? Jump onto Twitter and join us at #DF Airwaves and let me know what you think about how we can look into certain circumstances and define whether something's baloney or not, or if it's real. How are we making sure that we're checking back to what's good for us, what's positive? The way that I would kind of drive this home is in a practical way. We've been given this life. We've been given a gift. What is it that we're here to do? I think that we can get distracted. We can kind of go up in la la land and get off track, or we can come back down to earth and go, how do we use this information in order to improve ourselves and the world around us? I believe that if we continue to stay grounded in our heart space and make sure that we're checking back to our goals for what it is that we want to do, this can really help us figure out what we want to focus on when it comes to researching paranormal topics or whatever, finding ways to look into things that are going to help you with your goals and what you're trying to accomplish in your world. So I'm your hostess, Teresa Yanaros at Divine Frequency. Thank you for joining me for this evening's celebration. I hope you guys had a wonderful 2018 and on to 2019. This is on the Airwaves Radio. Life is all about riding the wave between the known and the mystery. For a sparkly dose of mediatainment and personal empowerment with a refreshing blast of glitter and truth, you can join me weekly on Thursday nights on jimmychurchradio.com at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, and the live Twitter hashtag is DF Airwaves. You can follow Divine Frequency on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, and you can go to thedivinefrequency.com and sign up for our newsletter to stay in the loop. The times have changed. The tides have shifted. Let's ride the airwaves. All around us are pieces of the gigantic cosmic puzzle. Let's attune to its frequency. Bye.